We're often asked what the best trip we've ever taken was. Each of us has our own favorite places in the world. In fact, let us know yours for future videos maybe. But when I'm asked that question, I always have to think about it for a bit. I go through the many dream destinations, the unforgettable moments, the first aurora borealis, the first trip that stirred something strange inside us, dream islands, Caribbean beaches. But in the end, my mind and heart always return there, Chernobyl, a place forever associated with human drama. To death, destruction, and radiation. I always feel a bit nostalgic thinking about that trip. But today is a lucky day because we can break down that wall of memories, returning to experience the symbolic places of April 26, 1986, a little more up close. But this time without radiation or danger, because we're going in search of the spots used in the HBO series Chernobyl, which was filmed almost entirely in the Baltic countries for logistical simplicity. So, dear friends, welcome back, finally, to Chernobyl. And our long on-the-road trip officially begins. The car is here, incredible but true, because Elisa, unfortunately, is not what she used to be.
What are you talking about? Now watch this. We are sorry.
But why didn't you book the Porsche? As we told you in the last episode, published from Lithuania, with Vilnius and the other stops around the country, today's episode is a special one for fans of the genre, and especially for those who know our channel from the historic 2021 expedition. To Chernobyl with Pripyat, the nuclear power plant, the Duga Radar, and the other episodes of the miniseries published here on YouTube. In those years, if you remember, the legendary HBO miniseries Chernobyl came out, and they decided to film the various scenes of the disaster in key locations, right here in the Baltic countries. So before telling you about the next stops on our long on-the-road trip between Latvia and Estonia, we wanted to dedicate a full episode to searching for the best spots from the successful series among the three Baltic countries. Welcome to this new video. Our long on-the-road trip through the Baltic countries continues. And today, the time has finally come for me to share a very special video with you all, one that I have truly been waiting a long time to bring to the channel, because we are officially back in Chernobyl. That is, if you are like me and you are passionate about this fascinating topic, and if you have seen the famous television series about Chernobyl, yes, the one produced by HBO, then you will know very well that a good part of those memorable shots, those scenes from that acclaimed miniseries, were actually filmed right here. We are now in the city that was used as Pripyat, the iconic location. Look at Elisa's face, how happy she is to visit this wonderful place. Well, yes, I'm not with my usual partner in crime for adventures of this kind, but Elisa, unfortunately, will have to endure this particular penance for, well, just a little while longer, I suppose.
Since I put up with you all year, this is a penance.
Tell me about it. We've come here to the city of Fabijoniškės. Hold on. I can already see you ready to comment that the pronunciations are wrong. Don't worry, they're all wrong, but these damn names. So the correct pronunciation of this pseudo-Pripyat should be Fabijoniškės. The main scenes were filmed here. Just think, the entire TV series was filmed over about 80 days of shooting, and 60 of the 80 were shot right here in Fabijoniškės. And it's not hard to understand why. Because if you followed the videos that have been published from Chernobyl way back in the year 2021, I actually have to say that there's quite a lot of Pripyat here, honestly. The really special thing about being here today is that it feels like living in a Pripyat that didn't experience the nuclear disaster. It feels like living in the Pripyat of terror, as if everything had quietly and gradually moved on, as if the swimming pool were somehow still active and in use, as if people had simply continued the normal everyday lives they were already leading back in the days of 1986. As you can see, even the streetlights here are very similar to the ones we saw in Pripyat, almost identical in their design and appearance. Elisa is a bit puzzled by the way people are looking at us. They're thinking, but what could be so beautiful to see? Here? In Pripyat, in the Familia. Actually, we're going to look for the exact original blocks that were specifically used during the filming of the HBO miniseries, because they used, if I remember correctly, let me think, definitely for sure Block 95 or 92 and Block 75. The thing that really reminds me a lot of Pripyat are narrow streets like these, and above all, a lot of vegetation on both sides that tended to grow upwards. Obviously, in that case, being an abandoned area, it tended to embrace all the buildings. Look here, too, there's life, but absolutely not in abundance, despite this being the 20th most important city in the entire country. I have to say, it's really fascinating. Obviously, if you want to support other adventures like this, because this video will be a bit long and special, since we'll shoot the first part here and the second part, we'll be filming in the location that was used as the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, which is actually somewhere else entirely. Subscribe down below on the right. Activate the bell so you don't miss all the upcoming episodes. Can you imagine the buses driving around, taking people from one place to another with the sign that says Pripyat on it? And speaking of buses, here we are. We've arrived at the block, one of the most iconic blocks from the entire HBO series. Because what you see behind me is Block 92, the apartment block where, of course, they are all numbered, which is a typical thing to see in the countries of the former Soviet Union. And this is the iconic block of Pripyat used during the evacuation. In fact, if you remember correctly, during the scenes of the HBO series, you can very clearly and distinctly see Block 92 in the footage as the buses begin to evacuate the city following the catastrophic explosion that occurred on April 26, 1986. Of course, the radioactive apples are missing, the stray dogs, the vending machines that with the stained glass allowed the population of Pripyat to drink water, just as, of course, the Pripyat River is missing. But it's very interesting to be here today, especially because of all the trips I've taken. Chernobyl will probably always and only remain in first place. After leaving Fabijoniškės, our trip to the Baltics continued for a few more days. And so here we are at a new stop on this unusual tour, Chernobyl HBO. We're moving to Latvia now. Good morning. A new day here from Latvia. We've basically left our favorite country, which we absolutely loved because everything was just incredibly perfect. This day was spent with a delicious and satisfying breakfast, enjoyed right in the lively city center. We then drove for about an hour, and today, at last, we finally came to the sea, since Lisa really wanted to see the sea, feel the fresh breeze, and get a nice tan. Obviously, even though we're right around the Ferragosto holiday, it's clear that here you won't have to compete for possession of a beach umbrella at all, or pay for it whatsoever. 30 or 40 euros, like in Italy. Just look at this. What a crowd we've got. By the way, here in Latvia, there are some incredible bike paths in the middle of endless forests. Anyway, given the temperatures, clearly the goal wasn't to get a tan, but here in Ventspils, we're close to a very interesting place to see.
Second stop of the day, we've proceeded to Irbine. We started from the lovely village of Duga this morning, the village that we've really liked. And we went to see the sea at Ventspils. It's one of the main port cities in Latvia. Now we've moved here to Irbine. It's a former Soviet village, a settlement that was once home to approximately 2,000 soldiers, as well as their families, who all lived and worked together in this area for many years. After 1991, when the Soviet Union fell, this village was abandoned, and now we find it in this condition. Wow! And
our journey continues in search of the locations from the famous HBO series Chernobyl. This is actually an extra spot that I had personally marked down, because this area here actually reminds me a lot of Pripyat, visited after the nuclear disaster. That's because the HBO series Chernobyl was obviously looking for locations from before the disaster in order to reconstruct the whole story. Here we are in Erbeny, in this area that I think you should absolutely mark down with a red pen. Because tell me if this doesn't really remind you of my exploration of Pripyat. This right here is the real Pripyat. And by the way, still in this area, right behind here, there's a specialized radar system that is primarily used for scientific research purposes, specifically for the observation and study of outer space. In reality though, when we actually go to turn on our drone, a clearly marked and reinforced alert zone is also indicated right here. So it's not possible to fly the drone inside this whole area, unless you have specific permits.
The Irbene radio telescope is situated near the city of Ventspils and what used to be a former secret Soviet military base. The main radar installation is known as RT-32, and it features an impressive antenna with a diameter of 32 meters. It is considered to be one of the largest radio telescopes in all of Northern Europe. This massive antenna was originally created by the USSR during the Cold War era, specifically to intercept Western communications. As we said before, with the fall of the USSR, the Soviets left. And this radar was converted into a prestigious scientific astronomical center, a facility managed by the Ventspils International Radio Astronomy Center, located in Latvia.
The radar today can only be visited through guided tours. We tried to ask, it would have been interesting to visit anyway, but they didn't reply to our email because it bounced back as if the mailbox was deactivated. And on the phone, they never answered us at all, neither by phone nor on WhatsApp. So we're seeing it from Yeltype.
Yes, we probably rode a little too late. In case you want to try to visit it, we recommend writing in advance. The tours are in English and Latvian, and if I'm not mistaken, in Russian too.
The whole ghost town. Here, on the other hand, you can visit freely without any major problems, and...
Don't miss it! I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
Alright, let's be honest. Elisa thinks all this stuff is crap, but actually,
Sound is silver lining for those who are fans of TV series. Like me, it feels a bit like you're inside. The Walking Dead. No, Rick is coming out. Or...
Goal for this long on-the-road trip through the Baltics is to reach Riga today. After traveling all over the Baltics, we're back to pass and go in Lithuania, without collecting a euro, but completing the on-the-road loop, which you'll see in full on YouTube in the various videos. And this is the very brutalist entrance sign to the Ignalina Power Plant. This is Nicola from the future, because in the meantime, we've spent over 3 weeks here in the Baltics. But in the meantime, you'll also see the various videos. What you see behind me, however, is the emblem of the HBO series Chernobyl, and obviously there's a very specific reason for that. We are at the Ignalina Power Plant, a few kilometers away from the city of Visaginas, or Vaginas for friends. And we are here, because this is the very same power plant that was featured and used in the critically acclaimed HBO television series Chernobyl. But for what specific reason was this particular power plant chosen and used? Well, it is because what you see right behind me are the RBMK reactors, which are the exact same type of reactors that were used at Chernobyl. And so, obviously, it was extremely easy and straightforward to shoot the entire Chernobyl HBO series. Right here, as you can see, there's no one, and the reason is simple. This power plant has now been shut down. It's possible to visit it with guided tours, so you can see the inside as well, and doing so will be very evocative, because obviously it's practically identical to Chernobyl. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take this tour because they've closed the tours for this year for 2025, so we'll have to wait until next year. And honestly, once you've seen Chernobyl, the real one, not the one in Belarus, as it's so trendy to say now, I've been to Chernobyl, but in the exclusion zone in Belarus, which has absolutely nothing to do with it. With the real Chernobyl, which is in Ukraine, everything else loses some of its interest. So besides the fact that it's not possible to take a tour this year, maybe in the future for those who, like me, are enthusiasts. So if some of you are enthusiasts, even just to see a bit of what the situation was like, at Chernobyl, you can come take a guided tour here, which, at least for the moment, are held on Tuesdays and Fridays. Fun fact, down at the entrance of the power plant, we can see the Lithuanian flag waving next to the European flag. And the sine qua non condition for Lithuania to join the European Union was precisely to shut down the Ignalina power plant, specifically because of its reactors, the RBMKs, which were known to have caused significant problems here as well. These are problems we know very well, which are also directly linked to the activation of the famous, or rather infamous, red button, AZ5, the very same button that in fact ultimately led to the catastrophic Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And so the European community told Lithuania, either you close up shop, my friend, or you're not getting into Europe. And they obviously, what did they do? They closed it. Here, back in the year 1983, an incident occurred involving the infamous control rods, which at the time were being mismanaged by the two nuclear reactors. So in 2004, the first of the two was shut down. And in 2009, the second one was shut down as well. And today, that's the reason we find it in this decommissioning phase. That is the management and disposal of the various waste materials. A shame, a real shame. Although this is a new opportunity, if you will, in a sense, for tourism purposes, for people like me who are passionate about the subject. Now, the video could have ended right here, but actually we haven't told you that there would be another absolutely iconic point from the Chernobyl HBO series. And in general, from the tour that was taken in Pripyat, that is the sadly famous Bridge of Death. But something went wrong. I'd say a new day from Lithuania, and a new point to come and discover. We are right next to a splendid cemetery nestled in this park. And above all, as you can clearly see right here, this is the sign that marks the way to reach the famous, or perhaps more accurately, the infamous Bridge of Death. This is the very bridge that ultimately condemned a large part of Pripyat's residents to death. Because on the evening of April 26th in the year 1986, after hearing the loud and terrifying explosion at the nuclear power plant, many of them gathered together on the bridge, which offered a direct and unobstructed view of the plant itself, with the Pripyat River flowing quietly below. This place here was used precisely to reproduce that famous scene. And so here we should find the Bridge of Death. This is the road, this is the decay, everything seems okay.
But there's the sign that indicates.
In the background, by the way, there's a power plant that... Anyway, this is a rather strange situation. A new road under construction with, in the background, a power plant. Here we also have the railway, because if I remember correctly, and in the meantime I'll add some images from 2021, anyway, if I remember correctly, there was the train that always passed underneath and went towards the nuclear power plant. And while unfortunately, the road that you see right here has ultimately led to the complete and utter total destruction of the poor, ill-fated Bridge of Death of Chernobyl, it is truly a tragic sight to behold. So there's no bridge anymore, only the sign is left, which they should probably take down at this point.